Okay, hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm going to go ahead and kick it off right at 2 p.m. as promised. Well, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is. Whatever time zone you are, thanks for joining us. This is Revize's 5 Ways to Boost Citizen Engagement webinar, part of an ongoing informative webinar series. So some brief housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. There's going to be a recorded version of the webinar on the Revize site after, just like every time. So don't feel worried if you're missing any information. There'll be a copy on demand on our website after. In addition, there will be a Q&A. There will be a Q&A up after the webinar. I just got note. Does everybody can everybody hear me? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started then, or continue on. There's going to be a Q&A after the webinar, and we'll have a Q&A session. So feel free to jot down any questions that you may have. Okay, thanks everybody. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking blindly. And lastly, the best way to keep up with upcoming social media dates is to follow us on social media and make sure that you can get some more intel. We have government technology updates, some cool articles, and social media posts as well. A little bit about us before we go ahead and get started. We've been around for over 20 years, and we have developed a diverse team of expert employees. We specialize in beautiful and functional web design for government agencies. However, we serve agencies all across the US. We're based out of Troy, Michigan, but that doesn't stop us from making websites from whoever needs it. Next, your host is me, marketing specialist Dani Esterline. In addition to being Revize's marketing specialist, I also travel across the nation meeting local government officials and gathering food for thought so that I can provide expert information during these webinars. Some brief overview so that way we're all on the same page as we go through this webinar. First, we're going to identify the need for citizen engagement. I'm sure we can all have some sort of guess, but I have some statistics I gathered that I like to show. Then we're going to go into the 5 ways to boost citizen engagement. So those sorts of methods are email marketing, social media, community events, inclusivity, and dialogue, followed by a brief Q&A. Please keep in mind that although these methods are kind of broad topics like the email marketing, social media, I'm going to give more detailed examples as we go through. That way you can have something to take home and add to the drawing board. So this is why citizen engagement matters. It's low right now across the nation. According to Governing Overall, only 19% of Americans recently surveyed contacted their local government officials within a 12-month period. That's a really low count, especially over the span of a year. We know that resident feedback is key to positive community development. There's a lot of academic articles. In fact, one quoted says that resident-derived insights into relationships provide a powerful mechanism for residents to drive change in their community. And active citizens encourage and motivate local government officials. We know that local government employees can be motivated both extrinsically and intrinsically, and citizen engagement relates to that sort of extrinsic motivation. So the first method is email marketing. Whether you're in local government or in any sort of business, email marketing is huge when we talk about delivering information in a timely manner. So some ways we can boost citizen engagement with email marketing is using cutting-edge features. We recommend utilizing MailChimp. That's a best practice, feature-rich email template provider. This one that I created on the screen, you can see is a MailChimp template. One way to engage citizens is to link to doodle polls for community projects. If you're not familiar with Doodle or MailChimp, they're very user-friendly, straight to the point platforms, and they're a good way to provide feed or receive feedback from your residents. So for example, having something on our email that links to a community project poll, seeing or where citizens can vote on which community project they would like to see, let's say in the next spring. Next is releasing monthly newsletters. So monthly newsletters are important in business presence to show that you know, or that the audience knows that you're still there. The local government monthly newsletter can serve as a method to communicate new projects, safety and health updates, which is especially important during the pandemic, and dates and events for important community matters. So considering sending out a monthly newsletter as a local government agency will help build some rapport with your residents. Next, something that was pressed upon me in my marketing undergraduate studies was always to encourage call to action in email marketing, which is something we can forget sometimes when we're delivering information. For example, if we're doing a monthly newsletter, it's very easy to write paragraphs about what's been happening within the community without using a call to action to start a conversation. If we're not inciting a call to action, we're just sort of speaking at somebody, not with them. So this example that I contrived on the side image is a mock email template that local government officials could use during local government voting time. So something like, have you registered to vote on your email marketing templates? And a register here button that would take the citizens to the place where they could make sure their voting information is up to date, as well as finding local polling booths. And lastly, keeping the conversation going. Just like I said, nobody likes to be talked at. When we're keeping this dialogue, we're showing residents that we care what they have to say. I know in my experience, when I send out newsletters, some will respond back, feedback that they have about something else. If I were to just leave that email unread and unresponded to, that would be cutting the conversation into a one-way communication, which is really not what we're trying to do if we're boosting citizen engagement. Next is social media. So social media is very important, and I'm sure that you've heard this before. Twitter actually has 397 million active users, Instagram having 1 billion active users, and Facebook having 2.4 billion users. So what does that mean? Probably that your residents are a part of this growing demographic. And so having a presence on social media platforms is essential to reaching all of your audience. One way we can boost citizen engagement through our social media platforms is using polling features and Q&A. So Twitter and Instagram have a very easy polling feature. You can also do it on LinkedIn and Facebook as well, but these are the examples I put just because it's very straightforward. We can see on the side, Stephen Foskett says, what do you think of Twitter's new polling feature? And the option saying what and Twitter does polls. So we know that Twitter is a great way to deliver and receive fast information. Many of your residents are receiving their news from there as well. So by having a poll, you're going to receive fast and effective feedback from residents. On the side too, I listed the Instagram poll too. One thing to note that's different about Twitter versus Instagram for the polling features is that Twitter doesn't show the person that voted for it, while Instagram does. So something to keep in mind. I try to use that strategically in my marketing efforts. So if I'm trying to reach a certain group of people and know who those people are specifically, Instagram might be the way to go. Next is getting verified on social media. By the way, I'm throwing out all of these numbers and statistics, but I'm going to list or copy paste the references after the webinar. So, I'm just not making up numbers out of fresh air, as well as some of the hyperlinks that go to some extra resources. But getting verified on social media is so important. When we see that blue check mark on Twitter, on Instagram, it's a sign of credibility and it's a sign of validity. What it shows is that you made notoriety within whatever your profession is, that people can respect and know that you're the real person behind the account. Getting verified isn't easy. Sometimes it is. It depends on the social media platform. On the Revize blog, I actually wrote a blog about how to get verified on Twitter. So I'm going to link that on. So when you're done, you have a little bit of homework and you can see about getting verified, because it just makes you look really legitimate as a local government agency. We can see Governor Phil Murphy has the blue check mark, Barack Obama has the blue check mark, Lady Gaga has the blue check mark, which probably isn't really industry specific, but still, you get my point. When we see that, we know that that person is important, or that we're going to take their words seriously. Next, a way to boost citizen engagement is to post links to live City Hall meetings for transparency. So I would recommend writing down this or just storing it in the back of your mind. New Jersey is a great government Twitter to follow. They're always up and coming on the hip young Twitter trends. They do a great job of tweeting consistently, of responding back to their audience. But you can see here that they retweeted Governor Phil Murphy on him tweeting a live link on making important economic announcements on recovery from Tropical Storm Ida. So we know during the pandemic that people really enjoy utilizing information from the comfort of their homes. In fact, a lot of us are working from home too. The same is true for the citizens in your community. Having these live links helps the spread of information, number one, get out to more people, and number two, it maintains a sense of transparency. So by the Governor Phil Murphy sharing these live links, it's not like he's hiding anything with the message he's delivering during these meetings. He's making sure that the people know when it's happening and what's being said, which is especially important during such polarized time and the stress of local government and government in general. And next and lastly is to comment and respond to citizens' comments on social media platforms. So like I mentioned earlier in the earlier slide, we don't want to talk at people. Nobody likes being talked at. A sort of conversation, that two-way communication, is going to bridge the citizen engagement and inspire more people to participate. So for example, if somebody were to tweet back to Phil Murphy asking him about content that he spoke with or spoke about during that live stream, if he were to respond back, that would only further validate his credibility as a government official, so that the people know that he's not just this floating head behind a screen. He's a person that's engaging with his constituents. So try to think that way when you are tweeting about some of the ongoing events in your community. Next is inclusivity. So according to the US Census, 33.8 million people in the US are multiracial, meaning that we better be adhering to some of these groups of people in the conversation for citizen engagement. Across the nation, citizens have hubs of cultural diversity and groups of different demographics, meaning that it's important to have a sense of representation in our communities. We saw even for-profit businesses using some of the inclusivity tactics to improve their consumer engagement. For example, something I think we're probably familiar with is on streaming services like Amazon Prime and Netflix, there's a section for amplifying Black voices, and that showcases Black-made films and TV shows. This sort of effort can be translated in local government too. I think sometimes we forget because, you know, Netflix and Amazon Prime is so vastly different than local government, but we're still, you know, targeting, there's some overlap in these audiences of people. So one thing to increase citizen engagement, especially with the diverse group of people in your community, is consider creating a page on your website where you showcase minority-owned and woman-owned, veteran-owned, family-owned businesses in your local government. What does this do? It shows that you're representing in your community. It shows that you're proud of having an inclusive local government, and it's inspiring people, citizens that are diverse, to be more willing to be part of that conversation when it is time to be part of that conversation. And lastly, diversity and inclusion training for onboarding and existing local government officials is very important. One thing I like to say is marketing only goes as far as the marketer, right? So if diversity and inclusion training is imposed upon local government efforts, it's only going to be translated in the marketing efforts. It will change facets of existing prejudices or predispositions, and the sort of language that the local government officials will be using will be more inclusive. It's a win-win for all audiences. Next is dialogue. So like I said earlier, we want to have that increase that two-way communication. Think about it. When our parents are talking to us, we don't like, just being informed so much of their day when we're on the phone with them. We want to be asked about our day, about how we're doing, if we're doing okay with our lives. The same thing is true with our citizens. And one way technology trends. So one trend that I would impress upon you to improve citizen engagement is utilizing chatbots. So we saw chatbots improve a lot, especially during the pandemic, because so many people were working from home. I know that I utilized it a lot for Amazon when I was having issues with my orders. And instead of waiting on the phone for hours upon hours, I was able to solve my problem within seconds or minutes with a chatbot. Local governments are starting to do the same, and so should you. It's a response rate, and it's utilizing less employee resources, right? So one of our preferred chatbot services for local governments is CityBot. This picture here you see on the screen is by CityBot, and you can see that the person is asking for permit fees, and then the chatbot takes them to that page. So it's a very simple way to get links and pages across. And next, having a user-friendly website with an easy navigation bar is only going to help citizens engage with your content and leave feedback in a positive manner. So I like to think about it as, what would you like to see in a website, right? So if we're surfing the web and we come across a site that's very dated, it looks archaic, lots of broken links, information is cumbersome, disorganized, we're going to want to get away from that page because it's not easy or consumable to the eye. The same thing is true with having a website. Citizens see your website as a very strong brand presence. It shows what the community or local government is known for. So having a robust, beautiful, aesthetic website that makes it easy for residents to find what they need to find is only going to benefit citizen engagement. So having easy navigation bars that show how to get the permits, how to pay your bills, how to find events, all of these things will boost your citizen engagement because more citizens will know what's happening in the community. And next is community events, and last is community events. So like I said earlier, and I'm sure all of us can attest, the pandemic sort of changed the way that we communicate, and I think is going to stay for a long time. We discovered that Zoom and a lot of things can be done from home, from the ease of our community. With that being said, it's still important to recognize how face-to-face communication can be effective for building relationships. Actually, according to Forbes magazine, employees with positive relationships become more dedicated and motivated to perform their best. So when employees feel more motivated, the efforts for citizen engagement will improve. So consider having something like a city hall mixer or reception. Like I said, I recognize that there are some different hurdles with coronavirus that we've been thrown into. So perhaps if that means having a vaccination card or getting vaccinated, showing proof of vaccination before, I think that's pretty common now in some community events in metropolitan areas. This is going to be a great way for citizens to get face-to-face contact with these local government officials to talk freely and comfortably. Next is having something like a cleanup day. I was just recently in California, and a lot of local government California officials are very big into the environment and having um, cleanup days within their communities. One way that I like to think about it, or I think is a good way to think about it at least, is think about the things that you do when you're not outside, when you're not in work, like when you sign up for a yoga class or an art class. When you go to this class, you know that you're going to be speaking or meeting people with like-minded interests. The same is true when you're having community-oriented events for people that are interested in certain subjects. So by having a cleanup day and utilizing marketing efforts strategically, whether that is email marketing or social media, you're going to meet more active citizens and start the conversation to get them involved in other projects within the community. And next is celebrating holidays and having events to share upcoming meetings and local events. Holidays and events are a very popular item for children and families within your community, and this is a great way to bring more people out to meet. One thing that I would consider as a local government official, if you're not doing this already, is events for things like Halloween, Christmas. It doesn't have to be anything big or extravagant, but having something that's sort of for kids might get some more families in the area and improve citizen engagement while reaching a broader audience, because some people can't leave their kids at home because they don't have people to watch them and things like that. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is that local governments are only as powerful as its constituents, and boosting engagements brings positive economic development and move towards progression. If we're adapting to new and existing methods as local government officials, we're only improving it for cities, towns, bureaus, organizations for to come. We're planting that seed, right? So we guarantee things work from it. We know this from before that transparency is super important for citizen engagement, during a time of misinformation, government or of citizens having polarized view, etc. Having citizen engagement is a way to make sure that citizens know that their voice matters, and that the worst thing I think is to spend so much time on a project with money, with resources, only to find out that the residents don't want that. So this is why engaged citizens and resident feedback is so vital to a positive, growing, developed local government agency. So thank you, Marcia Gracias, for joining us today on the short informative webinar series. You can email us at contact@revize.com for any questions. The best way to reach us or follow up, like I said, is social media. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. We share lots of stuff, and we're really good about getting things out there week by week. So we're always talking with you. And if you want to see more of our product, we make beautiful government websites, like I said before. You can visit www.revize.com. And now we're going to go into a brief Q&A, and I'm actually going to drop some of the references in chat. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with Jen. Jen says, should the newsletter be in an email format or a PDF page? So here's a question, an answer that I'm not sure is going to be super helpful, but I think it really depends on the person, on whether they're going to do a PDF or email. Personally, I would suggest using an email format because some email readers protect against PDFs or external images. So the simpler text and shortest email you can send out to your audience is better, in my opinion. Do we have any other questions? I'm gonna copy and paste these references in the chat. Excuse me. And one of these is how to get verified. So like I said, I would suggest that, like I said, I go to lots of conferences for local government officials, and that's always what's impressed upon me is this, you know, the idea of getting verified. So yeah, these are the links here. Does anybody have any questions about any of the strategies or suggestions they have seen? Okay, so Nancy Stoddard, this is a great question, and I ran into this. I think it happens for everybody, not just local government agencies, even businesses when they're trying to get out in the community. Nancy says, what can we do to advertise a special calling for Volunteers Day in May after announcing it in a December newsletter? We would like to keep the idea alive. Yes, so honestly, I can actually probably, you can find some best practice email marketing methods online if you just Google search that, Nancy, but I would suggest, in my experience, is I wouldn't let the people know about an event in May and December. I would let them know a month or two before, because people have so much on their plate and they're receiving so many information from various resources, which I'm sure many of you all here can attest to as local government officials, that your email inboxes are blown out. So I would say, if you have already sent it out, to continue perhaps delivering that message, just so people don't forget since you've already sent it out. That's just my experience. There's some great articles on MailChimp about, you know, how to use email marketing without bothering people or getting some unsubscribers. Unsubscribes are bound to happen when you're emailing a large audience, but nonetheless, you want to keep those people interested. So for this event in particular, I would, you know, remind them every couple of months up until December, or up until May, excuse me. Anybody else have any other questions? Okay, well, I'm going to close out the session then, so you guys don't have to stare at this adorable picture of this dog for too much longer. But remember, if you have anything that comes up after, you can always message us. Okay, Antonia Rivera, there's one more question, so I'm going to wait. Antonia asks, what are some do's and don'ts on newsletter in order not to offend anyone? So that's a kind of tricky question, but the way that I would construct it is, think about the audience that you're adhering to, and then remember, you're getting so many emails, so these citizens are probably getting lots of emails as well. I think for a newsletter, being as concise, direct, and straight to the point is a do when we talk about newsletters. I would say a don't is using too many images, because, for example, a lot of email servers will black out images. You know, Outlook will do that. Pretty much, I think a lot of them except for Gmail. So even though they look super beautiful, nobody's going to see those photos, and it's just going to look like little boxes that are like loading. So I would say keep it short, simple, sweet. use one or two photos, get your message across, and use a call to action on your newsletter. If that's, hey, sign up to subscribe to this list to be reminded about the encourage all age groups to attend a special event. Okay, so this is a great point to make, and it kind of encompasses some of the things that I was saying with inclusivity. I think it can be easy to sort of think of local or of our citizens as perhaps one age demographic, but that's not the case. In doing my research for this webinar, I found that many age groups like mine, Gen Z, millennials, want to be engaged. I mean, think about it. We never shut up. We always have an opinion about everything. We want to be involved. It's all about reaching to us in our market. So what I would say in that regard, Nancy, is using the social media platforms that those generations are using. So getting your message across on Instagram might be different than how you do it on Facebook. So what I mean by that is using more interactive content on Instagram, adhering to some of the younger age groups, versus having some more informative, shareable content on Facebook, because we know by research that a more diverse group of age ranges on Facebook. So I would say it's key in the social media strategy on which platform you're going to use. Would it be a good idea to comb through the community and local vendors on upcoming sales and openings? If I'm understanding you correctly, Antonia, I would say that it would definitely be a good idea. I think that there's a lot of charm, and I think the citizens appreciate when they know about local vendors that are in the community. I mean, especially if we were really thinking about it during the coronavirus times, how many of those supporting small businesses things we saw. I think a lot of people want to get involved with local businesses because it's closer to them. They have more, they can build more of a personal relationship. So I would say, yeah, I would consider, like I said, with the inclusivity training, having a page, perhaps of the local owned businesses, highlighting ones that are minority owned, or woman owned, family owned, and then vice versa, making sure that those marketing efforts are going hand in hand, because a community and a local government official is only as strong as its vendors and citizens. Also, they probably have a very strong sense of pride in their community, or they want to open up their business in that area. So I think it's really important to identify vendors. Any other questions? All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and close out the session. It was really great. I had a really nice time, and it was very interesting exploring all of these different ways that citizens can, or we can improve citizen engagement. So thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day. Like I said, there's going to be a recorded version of this webinar after in the Revize site within the next couple of weeks.